You made your own notes. So we are looking at our concept. My question is, what is document object model? But just to understand that, we are just going to go through a brief introduction to what DHTML is, what is XML, what's XHTML, and what is WML. Just so that you know, you are going to work in web industry. So these are terms which will come handy. Yeah. So which group should I ask first? What are your findings? Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Okay. How many of you agree? He's just taken those notes from W3 schools. Is that right? Okay. So XHTML, is that what we should be talking about first? All of you agree what XHTML is? If you're saying XHTML is stricter than HTML, that's your first word, is that right? It's strict. It's strict. I mean, it's gonna write funny, but it's gone. It's all right. It's an XML application, right? If that is the case, then we should know what is XML first. Is that right? If it is an application which is made using XML, then we should be able to identify what XML is. So do you want to tell me what is XML? Does your group want to tell me what XML? Mm-hmm. Very good. These were the characteristics of HTML. HTML was considered to be simple language, but it was ambiguous. When I say ambiguous, that means it has code which is not clear for the browser, right? And it was considered to be a loose language. Now, when I say loose, that means if somebody has written down this as a tag, it is fine. If somebody wrote this, that's also fine. If I wrote, that's also fine. All these are equivalently well, right? And we have to close a tag, isn't it? We have a rule that we are supposed to close a tag, right? But HTML said if somebody hasn't put this, it's still okay. It's still okay, right? Now, if that is the situation, then if you are working on, you are asking somebody else to look at your code and say whether it is right or wrong. If he doesn't have strict rules to say, then that means that person cannot tell you whether that line is valid or not, isn't it? If I give you a piece of paper and say, can you please check this for grammar? Well, I haven't set the grammar rules. How can I say that it is valid or not valid? Does that make sense? Do you understand that? Like if I'm saying, if I'm writing down an English sentence and you don't have commas and semicolons and full stops, and I'm asking you which one is the clause? Is it a full sentence? I don't know because there's no full stop. I can't tell you because there's no full stop in that language. Now HTML had this problem, and then now with technology, we wanted new things in HTML. We wanted our HTML to be interactive. We want video, we want audio, we wanted images, we wanted so many things to go in our HTML pages, and we were saying it does not have a structure. Do you understand? It said that HTML does not have a structure. We need to have a structure. Until unless we have a structure, we can't put things into it which we really want to expand. So what came up? They standardized the structure and we called it as it's just a standard. It just suggests rules how to create any markup language. Does that make sense? XML itself is just standard rule, right? It just defines few rules. If you follow that rule, you create your own language, right? That is why the name is extensible markup language. I can create various languages out from it as far as I follow those rules. So one company can create its own language of talking onto the net as far as they follow XML, right? And the document they follow is called DDT. You know, the file which we create, which defines the rule, where the rule definitions are, is called as document type definition. Remember at top of your HTML pages, you used to write down something called as doc type, and it context is equal to some reference, some online reference. If you look at that code closely, you will see that they are actually referring to a file which is this, which is for that HTML. That library is rule for that kind of an HTML. We came out with versions. Now the HTML which is following that standard is XHTML. But then we had sub rules 1.0, 1.1, or strict or transitional version of this, that how strictly will this HTML follow that specific definition. Does that make sense? So we had a version from where we moved from HTML to XHTML, but XHTML is nothing but saying that we're going to conform to those standard rules which have been set up. And that's why we say that XHTML is an application of XML. Is that right? We have WML, which is wireless markup language. That means we use that language to create mobile apps. You know, where you on your app on your mobile, where you just have the first screen where you see icons and then you click next or get, you know, those buttons which may work. Actually, there's a language which we use, which is WML, to create those small apps which work on it, which has moved. I mean, we've moved away from WML a lot, but that's where it all started, because we have other programming languages through which we can actually create those apps. But WML was an HTML version to be worked on wireless devices, mobile phones, or PDAs, which we don't use anymore. Now the word is tablet. You know, earlier we used to have personal digital assistants, like small, but now we don't have that concept. We just have tablets, which are getting smaller and smaller. Like they're smaller. I mean, there's a confusion with a smartphone is getting bigger or a tablet is getting smaller, isn't it? So many versions. So that's why now what we're saying is, in between somewhere came this. But this was not a new language. The HTML is still HTML or XHTML. It's a concept which said that if you wanted to use JavaScript, you need to understand what is HTML structure. That's all. You know how HTML works, right? Now, when I say how does HTML works, do we have tags and subtags? Do we write down tags within tags? Can you give me an example? What tag we write down within what? Sorry? When you write tables. So when I write down table, what tag do I write down inside it? TR. And I write down TD. Is that right? and then I close my tr, and then I can close my table. Is that right? So td is contained inside tr is contained inside table. But what about table itself? What is it inside? Body. And then what is body inside? Very good. That's brilliant. Now, to understand HTML structure, this is what we had to be very clear which tag is going inside what. And can I locate this within this? Can I pick this up from here by using just the name table? Can computer identify it or not? Right? And if we are working on that structure, then yes, if I say HTML is a document, in that document, what exists? So what is identifiable? Now earlier, when we started with JavaScript and we started with HTML, we could not identify a line. You will not believe we couldn't identify H1s, or you could say paragraphs. We couldn't because the structure did not allow that. The structure only made a collection of what? Table, forms, a window. So there were few elements only defined in that structure model, right? And that's what is called as dynamic HTML, the concept of having this object structure, making it work with JavaScript, right? Time went by, technology moved, we progressed, and we came across CSS. Is that right? At that time, there was no CSS. When DHTML came, there was no CSS. Do you understand? I mean, there's been a gradual progress. What I'm saying is, remember we were saying table and then we would have border? One. That's a table, that's a tags property, isn't it? So at that time, we were only working with tag properties. There was no CSS. But as soon as we made this progress in programming languages and defining structures, CSS came into being. That was another step which came in, that we can, let's change the whole concept. Why can't we make everything in HTML document an object? Why can't we trace a paragraph? Why can't we trace an H1? Why can't we pick up everything? If we can pick up everything, then why can't everything have the same properties? If H1 can have, if table can have border, why can't a paragraph have border? Do you understand? If a paragraph can have a border, why can't H1 have a border? They're same properties. All I have to do is draw a line around it. And if I can define the how much size it's going to be, I should be able to draw a line around a paragraph or a H1. Do you see it as a progression? Yeah. Now all the properties were defined and that became your CSS. Every property can be defined, can be given a value, and that could be given to every tag. That's what a CSS is. And now CSS is making its own progression. We are adding on properties. CSS1, CSS2, and CSS3 is nothing but addition of those properties, which is moving on with technology. And when I say moving on technology, that means we are making our browsers more intelligent. Yeah. It's like saying hello. Why do I have to say HELLO, hello? Why can't I just say H and it means hello? Yeah. So, but I would need a dictionary which says H means hello, right? So if somebody uses H, computer should be able to understand that he's trying to write hello, like a shorthand directory. And this is what this is what is happening with time. These are what are called as libraries, or people who go and work this much. They're making things easier for you, but they're taking you away from how they're doing it. Does that make sense? They are doing it. They are writing down the code. And that's what exactly a jQuery is done, or a CSS3 is done. Have you seen CSS3's code where an object can come sliding, or you can have transformed? Have you seen CSS3 examples? You should go on to on W3 schools and look at the CSS3 example, which is transition. That means I can make a box or a text jump from here to here. I don't have to do anything, write down a CSS property. That's it. How much jump do you want? How much time should it take? Earlier, I had to write down a JavaScript program. Pick this up, move, put it here. I don't have to do that. CSS has done that. So that means what have they done? The code is there, but code identifies it with that name. Is that right? What's that? What is it? It's not my phone. Come on. There's nothing here also. Could be from here, but I just couldn't understand. Some snakes wriggling up the pipe. Okay. So what we have, so we can, they moved it further. What we said that there are two ways of handling them. One that I can call them as HTML element. Body is tag, which can be found inside it. Computer will maintain how many tags are there in body, and you can actually go from one to another and you can count, right? And it will be able to change the properties. There's another concept that this is, everything is a node. Node means an element. Everything is an element. It has got sub element, right? And that's an XML model actually. That is what XML model says, that in my page, I should only have one node structure. And you actually have that. HTML is the major tag, and everything on the page stays within HTML. Is that right? You have HTML start and you have an HTML close. Is that right? So that's one tree. Do you understand? Which has got one root at the top, and the root can have a subnode, and it can have children, and further, which is a collection which you can actually always see. So that means if I go here and I ask computer to go to a child, it should actually take me to body. If I go to body and I say child, then it should, if there are three tables in it, it should, table 1 is first, table 2 is second, and table 3 is third. Is that, do you understand that? Yeah. If there is H1, if there is a paragraph, then what does HTML does, or browser does basically, who is actually who talking about this concept is, if browser does what, every window you open, right, in its memory, it keeps a track of that window, right? So it starts with window. How many documents are open in one window? Can I open more than one document? Can you have more than one tabs? That is one document, isn't it? One tab is one document, but how many windows are? This is one window. There's only one cross here. That's one window. How many documents do I have open in this window? 5. So one tab has got 5 documents open. Do you see that? So computer would do, browser would do what? It will actually keep a track of that I have one window, but you might have Internet Explorer 2 windows open, is that right? So that means there are, but then it starts from top down. It starts from window. It goes down to document. And what does it does is then, they are not called windows, they are called tabs. When you say open a new tab, it opens here. When you say open a new window, it gives you a new window. This is a window which you get, right? Which you can move, which you can minimize, and you can maximize. That's a window. I can't minimize a tab, can I? If I minimize, it will minimize all 5. Is that right? Yeah. So the concept, you have to understand that. That's how Windows concept. That's how um, the GUI concept. I shouldn't use the word Windows because Apple works on the same principle. When I say graphic user interface, that's a concept of a graphic user interface, right? That you have a window which has properties. That's going to be your title bar. That's standard. Is that right? Mac also uses the same. You have a title bar at the top, tells you where you are right now. There's going to be cross or doesn't matter whether it's a cross, it's a red dot, right? But it has the same on the left or right, but then that's not important. I'm talking is in generalized features of a graphical interface. Window is one big thing which can be resized. It's the properties, right? So you have windows, and in that window, I can actually open multiple documents, right? I can now there are some applications which do not allow you to open multiple documents. One window will mean only one document, that's it, right? Traditionally, Word was like that. Now it is not. You can open, or Excel was like that. 2000 or older models, multiple documents. It will open that many windows for you. Now you have multiple documents can open up in one window. That's a technology advancement. Earlier it was not there. I mean, programming advancement basically. So what we are saying is, when you open one window, it starts with window. That's how it remembers, right? One window, two windows. How many windows are there? Within that window, there is going to be a document. So it's going to have a collection of documents. Is that right? It has some way of remembering which a referencing of document. And when I say remembering, in computers, does computer has a memory? Working memory? RAM. So in that RAM, it is actually allocated memory to each document. And it remembers what the references is for that. Because when you shift, it actually just moves from one memory block to another to give you the same screen which you were at. Yeah. Within that document, there is history. Is there a history? It maintains history for each, right? But should it be window or should it be documents? Where will history belong? Will it belong to window or will it belong to document? Window. Thank you very much. Because document doesn't have history, it's the whole window. It maintains a history for the whole window, right? If you have 5 tabs, it knows what 5 tabs have you opened up. But what about back and forward? It's a window or it's a document? Because you can go backward and forward within that tab. Is that right? Right? So you have a document, and now we're talking about, but then what does document contain? It's an HTML document. So it has a tag or a parent node called as HTML. Now, how many nodes are inside it? It has that collection. It records that. How many forms are there? How many images are there? How many hyperlinks are there? That's all maintained. That's all a collection. Do you understand? That's why when you say in your CSS, what is it doing? It's actually able to go through all those, isn't it? And color them red. Because it knows how many hyperlinks are there. And then it keeps, now you also have what's that? IDs. So I would have an ID which is H. It knows how many IDs do you have and what IDs are those. So it can actually locate and jump there straight away. Yeah. So but then there are two ways of referring to them. One is by their names. Does that make sense? Anchor, first anchor, second anchor, third anchor, fourth anchor, or fifth anchor. Is that right? Another way of referring to them is through their IDs. I want to go to this specific object. This is its ID. Go and look for it, right? Or the other way is start from here. This is the first starting point. Either I can make a jump or I can go one step, second step, third step, right? If I want to do that, then I will use something called as node list. And I'll say I will start using the words as nodes because I don't know what that node is. It could be a table, or it could be a H1, or it could be a paragraph. Is that okay? Or I say go to the second hyperlink. That means I've excluded everything and I'm just going through a list of hyperlinks, right? Or I say go to a second heading. That's again you're going through only H1s or H2s. Or you go by IDs. Go to Victor. Go to Vajda. That's all. Go by ID, right? So the document object model is a concept which is been given to HTML, and what we do in JavaScript is refer those elements and change their properties. Is that what we do? JavaScript just allows us doing this. Refer to that ID or refer to that object and tell me to change the property. When do you want to change the property or change the property? But to be successful in knowing that, you have to understand and work through the document object model. That is why we were talking about it. Your JavaScript starts with understanding the document object model, right? Now, when the document object model you were looking were on screens was said JavaScript DOM. Is that right? That will only give you node and child node and element because that's the terminology which Ajax or jQuery or JavaScript can use. But we don't usually in JavaScript don't only use that. We also use an HTML DOM concept where we could refer to document or a window or collections of H1s or paragraphs or hyperlinks, right? So that's why you need to see both. So if you look for HTML DOM, you will see, or you go to DHTML, it will show you that document object model which was initially given to understand HTML, right? And this is the reason W3 School has not taken DHTML out, even though we don't use that. We don't use that terminology anymore. But if you go to W3 Schools, you'll see the word DHTML, and the first thing it will introduce you to is DOM. That's what they will do. They'll tell you that this is the browser's document object model. Yeah. Go back to your screen and see that. Can you locate it? Go to W3 Schools and look for DHTML. Can you find DHTML and does it show you DOM? It should show you